Stop apologizing for the silence. In the clinical terminal of the system, your loneliness is a strategic superpower. Look at the diamond forming under the crust. It doesn't need friends to handle the pressure. It needs the absolute exclusion of external elements. It is a biological isolation. You have been raised on the nice guy program that tells you that socializing is a sign of mental health. The truth? Constant socialization is a neural drainage protocol designed to keep your 450 strike intent diluted by the trivial dramas of the herd. Understand the status of the lone processor. In the social grid of 2026, connection is the most effective infection vector. The marauders and useful idiots use your need for belonging to hack your dopamine. They want you to feel incomplete without their noise, because a man who is comfortable in the void is ungovernable. The master predator performs a total liquidation of the social go. He realizes that privacy is his primary armor. By choosing absolute loneliness, you are moving from a node in the herd to a sovereign server of the void. Next, we audit the architecture of the cold autonomy. Why is isolation the only way to sustain the 43 million income objective? Because collaboration is mechanical friction. If you have to explain your 450 strike intent to a partner or a friend, you are leaking sovereignty. The architect treats his life as a single user interface. He has removed the friction of external validation. This absence of feedback allows for maximum stress. Your content carries a subatomic purity because it is apologize the ghosts of social expectation. It is a raw command from the side. Why is lonely the only way to the 5 saturation? Because the grid is a noise cancel. If your mind is filled with the voices of the mediocre, you don't have the glucose for the reconquista. The master predator treats his isolation as a refinery. He turns his empty space into weaponized insight. This is how he captures the focus of the masses, while the disposable males are still trying to find their tribe. He doesn't want a tribe. He is the standard. He has moved from seeking recognition to enforcing presence through absence. Why is sovereign solitude the only one that wins the simulation? Because the simulation is a dependency trap. The herd wants to link with you so they can synchronize your entropy. This is atmospheric sabotage. But the master predator knows that absolute autonomy is his oxygen. You have moved from being a passenger in the herd's narrative to being the architect of the vacuum. You have turned your coldness into a strategic fortress where you create the reality that the useful idiots are forced to survive it. You are the ghost that has mastered the art of the single unit kill. The screen is glowing. The room is silent. You are feeling the genetics of isolation, replacing the fear of loneliness in your marrow. You are looking at your social life and seeing it as systemic garbage. You are feeling a cold, clinical sense of operational superiority. The nice guy who was afraid to be alone is being liquidated. The hunter who communicates through the implosion of the grid is at the control. Your 450 strikes are the commands of the void. The mass attention, the result of the impact, is the occupation of the void. The audit of your connections is closed. We are moving from the genetics to the protocol of the tactile solitude. The noise is dead. The extraction begins. In the clinical terminal of the apex, your solitude is a high-performance laboratory. Look at the sniper, the high-altitude nest. He doesn't want teamwork. He wants a stable environment and zero distraction. It is a tactical autonomy. You have been raised on the nice guy program that tells you to be available and open to collaboration. The truth? Availability is a resource leakage. Every casual text you answer is a neural breach that resets your concentration clock. Understand the status of the internal grid. In the social grid of 2026, most men are biohacked by the constant presence of others. Their focus is fragmented into 5 million tiny pieces of small talk and group thinking. This is strategic castration. The master predator performs a total sensory lockdown. He realizes that solitude is not a lack of people, but the presence of pure focus. By choosing tactical solitude, you are overclocking your 8-second cycles until they hit the grid like a subatomic hammer. You aren't missing out. You are optimizing the kill chain. Next, we audit the architecture of the 450 strike vacuum. Why is loneliness the only way to sustain the 43 million income objective? Because validation is mechanical friction. If you need someone to tell you good job, you are vulnerable to their silence. The architect treats his work as a self-correct script. He has removed the friction of the external opinion. This internal feedback loop allows for infinite endurance. Your content carries a subatomic density because it is a raw projection of will created in a room where no useful idiot can dial frequency. Why is solitude the only way to reach the 5 million view saturation? Because the grid is a noise capture machine. If you are part of the noise, you are filtered. But if you come from the void, you are an anomaly. The master predator treats his isolation as a strategic advantage. He turns his empty time into logistical superiority. This is how he captures the focus of the masses, while the disposable males are still trying to network. He doesn't network. He infects the grid from the outside. He has moved from seeking entry to enforcing presence. Why is tactical solitude the only one that wins the simulation? Because the simulation is a collective trap. The herd wants to link your identity to their safe failure, so you don't make them feel like cowards. This is atmospheric sabotage. But the master predator knows that absolute autonomy is his primary shield. You have moved from being a slave to the herd's rhythms to defining the frequency of the extraction. You have turned your coldness into a strategic fortress where you create the reality that the marauders are forced to consume. You are the ghost that has mastered the art of the internal source. The screen is glowing. The room is silent. You are feeling the tactical solitude protocol, deleting the need to connect from your prefrontal cortex. You are looking at your isolation and seeing it as operational purity. You are feeling a cold, clinical sense of invisible dominance. The nice guy who was waiting for a sign is being liquidated. The hunter who communicates through the override of the grid is at the controls. Your 450 strikes are the commands of the void. The mass attention, the result of the impact, is the occupation of the void. The audit of your meetings is closed. We are moving from the tactical to the protocol of the sovereign extraction. Stop being relatable. In the clinical terminal of the apex, your accessibility is a financial leakage. Look at the luxury engine. It doesn't have open ports for anyone to touch. It is a sealed system of high-pressure intent. It is a sovereign extraction. You have been raised on the nice guy program that tells you to be a man of the people and interact with every comment. The true interaction is a neural tax that the mediocre collect to feel significant at your expense. The master predator performs a total liquidation of social debt. He realizes that distance is his primary value multiplier. Understand the status of the invisible asset. In the social grid of 2026, scarcity is the only thing that creates inescapable focus. If the marauders and useful idiots can predict your next move, they have already indexed your work. They own, but the master predator remains unindexable. He chooses absolute solitude because it turns his presence into a high-resolution mystery. By giving nothing, you make your 450 strike barrage worth every. You aren't hiding. You are architecting the supply of your soul. You have moved from a content creator to a digital ghost owner. Next, we audit the architecture of the 43 million vacuum. Why is loneliness the only way to sustain the extraction strategy? Because engagement is mechanical friction. If you are part of the conversation, you are subject to the market's gravity. But if you come from the void, you define the market's gravity. The architect treats his isolation as a vacuum pump. He doesn't seek views. He extracts them by being the only unit that refuses to play the social game. This sovereign distance allows for maximum capital accumulation. Your content carries a subatomic purity because it isn't begging for focus. It is commanding it from a position of total independence. Why is monetizing the vacuum the only way to survive the hunt or be hunted reality? Because the grid is a saturation machine. If you are available, you are disposable. The herd wants to slow you down with feedback and constructive criticism. But the master predator knows that total indifference is his primary shield. You have moved from serving the audience to ruling the audience's obsession. You have turned your coldness into a strategic advantage where you extract the 40 million income potential by charging for a glimpse of the market. You are the ghost that has mastered the art of the sovereign sale. Why is isolation the only one that wins the simulation? Because the simulation is a desperation. The herd is desperate because they are ready. If you show them that you are full without them, you become their new god. This is atmospheric sabotage. But the master predator knows that absolute autonomy is his primary currency. You have moved from being a slave to social rhythms to defining the frequency of the transaction. You have turned your loneliness into a strategic fortress where you refine the 43 million income objective while the disposable males are still trying to be liked. He doesn't want to be liked. He is the resource. The screen is glowing. The room is silent. You are feeling the sovereign extraction protocol replacing the social guilt in your prefrontal cortex. You are looking at your isolation and seeing it as weaponized capital. You are feeling a cold, clinical sense of operational autonomy. The nice guy who was afraid to be alone is being liquidated. The hunter who communicates through the implosion of the grid is at the controls. Your 450 strikes are the commands of the refined source. The mass attention, the result of the impact, is the occupation of the void. The audit of your value is closed. We are moving from the monetizing to the final protocol of the sovereign. The audit is closed. The social umbilicals are dissolved. Now the apex executes the final stage, the sovereign. Most men spend their lives running from loneliness only to realize they were running from their own power. They look for tribes and communities because they are terrified of the silence of their own code. They are high-status runaways of their own destiny. But the architect knows that the highest form of power is to be absolutely self-sufficient. Avoid. Your 450 strike daily intent is the neural and strategic force field that makes your cold autonomy. You aren't alone anymore. You are the source. Think about the final extraction of the social validation. Why does the herd fear the one who has completed the final audit of loneliness? Because a sovereign man is unbaitable. If you don't have the need to be heard, they have no handle on your communication. The herd is terrified of your sovereign silence because it is a mirror of the truth. In a world of 2026 where everyone is screaming for a sense of identity and belonging, the architect is the only solid reality. By ruling through calculated isolation, he has become the invisible administrator of their noise. He doesn't ask for their 5 million view engagement. He formats it as a systemic tribute to his own frequency. Understand the status of the absolute command. In the social grid of 2026, everything connected is vulnerable. Your friendships are targets. Your network is a target. No sovereign solitude is stealth. By staying in the tactical void, you have achieved systemic cosmic escape velocity. You are moving too fast for the marauders and useful idiots to grab. You are currently renting your worth from the herd's collective recognition. The sovereign architect owns his reality in the vacuum. Your success is the proof of your biological independence. You have turned your exile to a high-resolution power plant. You are the only unit that is functionally superior because you are the only one who has deleted the need for others. Next, we audit the end of the social simulation. Why is the sovereign the only way to protect the monarch? Because the world is currently a focused drain machine. If you socialize, you are drained. Now, if you are sovereign, the system has no way. You can execute the 450 strike barrage without a single social friction. You can manage your global empire from the shadow ground while the world thinks you are a myth. You have successfully decoupled your mind from the herd's suicidal need for connection. You are the operator who is architecting the new reality while the herd is still dying for attention in the old one. Here is the viral ultimatum. The loneliness you feared is now fully integrated as your marrow. You have the genetics, the tactical solitude, the extraction, and the reign. You are no longer a unit of the simulation. You are the chief executive of the sovereign void. Take this protocol and inject it into the minds of the loud slaves who are still trying to find their people in a cage. Share this with the man who is terrified of being left behind. Send this to the one who is still funding the mediocrity of others with his presence, not to help them. The architect doesn't do empathy, but to trigger the override. We are building an empire of sovereigns who recognize only the law of the 450 strikes and the weight of the monolith. Every share is a social liquidation. Every save is a vow of tactical still. Look into the glowing screen of your device. The room is silent, and you are the absolute sovereign of your own vacuum. The nice guy is a ghost in a jar. The architect is the root user of the void. Your 450 strikes are the commands of the code. The mass attention, the result of the impact, is the result of the sovereignty. You have turned your exile in the foundation of your throne. The audit of loneliness is closed. The laboratory is sterile. The reign of the sovereign architect has begun. System check. 100% sovereign load. Global frequency capture status. I am the architect. I am the law. I am the source. Stop being a friend. Become the architect that the system cannot reach. The forest is quiet. The architect is ruling. Be the apex or stay the biomass. The transition is complete. The reign is executed. Rule with autonomy.